evening. If you're joining us live, settle in. If you're listening later, maybe turn the volume up just a little bit. Welcome to the debut of Crime Valley. Now, usually when you hear a title like that, you expect us to be dissecting, cold cases, talking about forensics, or figuring out who left the fingerprint on the window.
Right, the classic true crime stuff.
And don't get me wrong, those are fascinating stories. But tonight, we are pivoting, we're opening a new file, we're looking at a different kind of crime scene.
The one that doesn't get police tape.
Exactly. We're talking about the crimes that happen inside the mind, the silent robberies, the hijacking of potential, the murder of ambition.
It sounds dramatic when you put it that way, but if you actually look at the statistics of human regret, it really is a crime scene.
It is.
It's the silent crime that nobody reports because, well, the victim and the perpetrator are usually the same person.
That is a heavy way to start a Tuesday, but it's exactly where we need to be. Tonight, to help us solve this specific crime, we are opening up a piece of evidence that's been sitting in plain sight since 1937.
A very old piece of evidence.
We are doing a deep dive into Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
I know what some of you are thinking right now. You heard that title, Think and Grow Rich, and you probably rolled your eyes.
I did at first.
Right. You're thinking this is some get-rich-quick scheme or maybe some outdated manual on how to be a greedy industrialist in the Great Depression.
I'll admit, before I really read it, I thought it was just about money. I thought it was, hustle culture before hustle culture even existed. But that's a misconception, isn't it?
It is a massive misconception. If you actually read the text, it's not really a book about money at all. I mean, money is the metric he uses because that's what people understood in 1937. But the book is actually a manual on control. It's about psychological architecture.
Psychological architecture. I like that.
Yeah, it's about how to take the chaotic mess of the human mind, the fears, the doubts, the drifting, and organize it into a laser beam.
So if we strip away let's call it the 1930s sales pitch, what we're really looking at is a study on cognitive control.
Precisely. Hill spent over 20 years interviewing the most successful people of his era. We're talking Ford, Edison, Carnegie, Roosevelt.
The titans.
The absolute titans. And he wasn't looking for their business strategies. He was looking for their mental algorithms. He wanted to know, what is the operating system running in the background of a person who changes the world?
And he found that it wasn't luck.
No. Not at all. He found that you don't drift into success. You have to decide it.
And that brings us to the core hook of the entire philosophy, doesn't it? The crime we're investigating tonight, wasted potential. It usually starts because people just refuse to make a decision.
They refuse to commit.
Let's unpack that, because making a decision sounds easy. I decided to have coffee this morning. Hill is talking about something very different. He starts with this concept of desire. Now, in modern English, that's kind of a weak word. I desire a sandwich. I desire a nap. It feels passive.
It does. And we need to be very careful with the language here, because Hill isn't talking about a wish. He draws a very hard line in the sand. He says a wish is just a preference.
See, that wouldn't be nice.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be nice if I had $1 million? Wouldn't it be nice if I was in shape? A wish has no teeth. It has no survival urgency.
Survival urgency.
Think about the story Hill uses to illustrate this. The story of the commander, I think it was Cortez, who landed his ships on enemy shores.
Okay.
He was vastly outnumbered. His soldiers were terrified. They wanted to go home. So what did he do? He burned the ships.
He literally destroyed their only exit strategy.
Exactly. They stood there and watched their only way home burn down to the waterline. Suddenly, winning the battle wasn't just a desire.
It became a necessity.
It was a necessity for survival. They had to win or they would die. Hill calls this a burning desire. It's a state of mind where you have cut off every possible retreat.
So you create a psychological state where the brain understands that failure is literally not an option.
It's not an option. So it's not about wanting something more than the next guy. It's about leaving yourself no other choice. It becomes an obsession.
A constructive obsession.
That's the key, a constructive one. He says it's an inner pressure that disturbs you. If your goal allows you to sleep peacefully every single night without making progress, Hill would say you don't have a burning desire yet.
You just have a hope.
You just have a hope. And hope, in this context, is a sedative. It makes you feel good without doing anything.
Okay, so let's say someone listening right now realizes, wow, I've just been hoping. How do they switch gears? Because Hill doesn't just leave us with the philosophy. He gives a very specific framework. He lists 6 steps to crystallize this desire.
And they are surprisingly rigorous.
They are. The first one trips people up immediately, step 1. Fix in your mind the exact amount of money or the exact nature of the success you desire.
You can't just say, I want plenty of money or I want a better job. It's too vague.
But why does that specificity matter so much? Is the universe like an accountant that needs the exact number?
Well, in a way, your brain is the accountant. Think about the reticular activating system, the RAS in your brain.
The filter.
It's the filter that decides what you notice. If you tell your brain, I want to be successful, that is an abstract concept. The brain can't hunt for an extraction.
It doesn't know what to look for.
No clue. But if you say, I want exactly $100,000 in the bank by December 31st, you've given the GPS a coordinate.
Ah, okay.
And now your brain filters reality differently. You start seeing opportunities you would have missed because you're attuned to a specific frequency. Vagueness produces vague results.
That makes so much sense. It's like when you buy a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. You just program the filter.
You did. But then we hit the second step. And this is the one that I think most people, especially in our culture of instant gratification, really struggle with.
I know the one.
Step 2, determine exactly what you intend to give in return.
The reality of exchange. The price tag.
There is no such thing as something for nothing. Hill is very clear on this. It's like a law of physics. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you want a massive output, you need a massive input.
Right. People will write down the goal, I want the promotion, but they leave the cost column completely blank.
Exactly. Are you willing to give up your weekends? Are you willing to give up Netflix? Are you willing to risk your reputation? You have to negotiate that price tag in advance before you start.
And then comes step 3, establish a definite date, a deadline.
Because without a date, the subconscious mind will procrastinate forever. Someday is not a day of the week.
So true. And finally, creating a definite plan and carrying it out immediately. And he really stresses that word. He says, start whether you are ready or not.
That's the action's the engine part. You can't think your way into a new way of acting.
But you can act your way into a new way of thinking.
That's it. Action first.
So, okay. We have the desire, the coordinate is locked in, we've burned the ships. But now we need fuel. And this is where we hit the second principle. And honestly, this is where I feel like a lot of modern analytical listeners might check out. Principle 2 is faith.
I know. The word itself triggers a reaction.
It sounds like we're suddenly moving from psychology to, I don't know, Sunday school. Is he just telling us to pray for the result?
No, and it's so important to strip away the religious baggage of that word to understand what Hill is doing here.
Okay.
He is using faith in a psychological, almost mechanical sense. He defines faith as the emotionalization of thought.
Walk me through that. Emotionalization of thought.
Okay. Have you ever known something was going to happen right before it happened? I don't mean you guessed. I mean, you drop a glass on a concrete floor, and in that split second before it hits, you know it's going to break. You have zero doubt.
Sure, but that's just physics. I know how gravity works.
And Hill argues that faith is simply that same level of certainty applied to your own goals. It is a state of mind where you have convinced your subconscious that the outcome is inevitable.
So it's not, I hope this works.
No, it is. This is already done. Time just hasn't caught up yet.
But that sounds delusional. How can you manufacture certainty about something that hasn't happened yet?
You build it. Hill argues, and this is the radical part, that faith is not something you either have or you don't. It is a state you can induce.
Okay, how?
The tool for inducing it is principle 3, autosuggestion.
Which brings us to the programming language, autosuggestion. Today we'd call this affirmations or maybe cognitive behavioral conditioning.
Right.
But again, it often feels kind of silly, standing in the mirror talking to yourself.
It feels silly because we are cynical. But let's look at the mechanism. Why does Hill say you have to say these things aloud with emotion? Why can't I just think them quietly?
I'm guessing because the subconscious is hard of hearing.
Close. It's because the conscious mind is a guardian. It's a gatekeeper. If you just say, I am wealthy, your logical mind immediately pops up and says, no, you're not. I saw your bank balance. It's negative.
So logic rejects the affirmation.
It just bounces off. But emotion is the backdoor key. Strong emotion bypasses the critical factor of the conscious mind and goes straight to the subconscious.
Oh.
When you mix a thought with a strong emotion, whether it's desire, faith, or even fear, the subconscious accepts it as a command. It doesn't argue, it doesn't judge, it just starts trying to make it true.
That's the scary part, though. You mentioned fear.
And that's the warning label on the bottle.
Yeah.
The subconscious is neutral, like fertile soil. It doesn't care if you plant corn or if you plant nightshade. It will grow whatever you plant.
So if you walk around all day emotionally dwelling on your poverty or your loneliness or your failure,
you are using autosuggestion. You are programming your mind to find more poverty and more failure.
So worrying is basically praying for what you don't want.
That is exactly what it is. You are broadcasting a signal of fear, and the brain tunes into that reality. Hill says you must stand guard at the door of your mind. You have to be the program director.
Okay, so we've got the software running. We have desire, faith, and we're using autosuggestion to install them. Now, we need to look at the hardware. The architecture of action. Hill moves into principle 4, knowledge, but he calls it a trap.
The knowledge trap. We've all been told knowledge is power. It's a cliche. And Hill says it's a lie.
Shots fired at the entire education system.
Well, think about it. Look at the academic world. You have universities full of professors who possess virtually all the general knowledge in the world, yet many of them struggle financially or have very little impact outside their classroom.
That's a fair point.
Hill says knowledge is only potential power. It only becomes power when it is organized into a definite plan of action and directed to a definite end.
He makes a really big distinction between general knowledge and specialized knowledge.
He does. General knowledge is broad. It's knowing little about everything. It makes you great at trivia night.
But it doesn't pay the bills.
Right. It rarely leads to building an empire. The market pays for solutions. To solve a complex problem, you need specialized knowledge.
But here's the relief, and I absolutely love the Henry Ford story he tells here. You don't have to hold all that knowledge in your own head.
This is one of my favorite anecdotes in the whole book. During World War I, a newspaper called Henry Ford an ignorant pacifist. So Ford sued them for libel.
Okay.
In court, the lawyers tried to prove Ford was ignorant by asking all these general trivia questions. Who was Benedict Arnold? How many soldiers did the British send over in 1776?
They were just trying to humiliate him, to make him look stupid.
Yes. And finally, Ford gets annoyed, points his finger at the lawyer and says something like, "Why should I clutter my mind with general knowledge to answer your questions when I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk?"
I love this part.
He says, "If I need to know about engineering, I push a button and an engineer comes. If I need to know about law, I push a button and a lawyer comes. I know how to get the answer. That is the only knowledge that matters."
That is the ultimate mic drop.
It really is. It completely redefined what it means to be smart. You don't need to be the encyclopedia. You just need to know how to use the index.
So once you have access to the knowledge, you need a place to assemble it. And that brings us to principle 5, imagination. Hill calls it the workshop of the mind.
He does. And again, he breaks this down into 2 types, which really helps because people often think, oh, I'm not creative, I can't use imagination. Hill says that everyone uses it. There's synthetic imagination and creative imagination.
Let's distinguish those. Synthetic imagination is what? The remix?
That's a great way to put it. Think of it like a chef in a kitchen. You have flour, eggs, sugar, chocolate. You didn't invent those ingredients. Synthetic imagination is the ability to arrange those old concepts into a new combination, a new cake. Hill says 90% of business success is just this. It's taking an existing idea and improving the process.
It's the finite mind working with what it already has.
Exactly. And then there's creative imagination.
And that's that?
That is the antenna. That is the lightning strike. That's when you get an idea that seems to come from nowhere.
The aha moment.
That's it. Musicians talk about this, hearing a melody in a dream. Scientists talk about the solution just appearing while they're taking a shower. Hill argues that this is the mind tapping into infinite intelligence.
But here's the catch that I found so interesting. You can't just sit around and wait for the lightning to strike.
No. The creative imagination only really works if the synthetic imagination is already running at full speed. You have to be working the problem, struggling with the ingredients before the antenna picks up the signal.
So the aha moment is usually the result of weeks of hard conscious thinking.
It's the reward for the work.
So you have the idea. Now you need to make it real. Principle 6, organized planning. This seems straightforward, but Hill puts a lot of weight on it.
Because this is the crystallization phase. This is where thought becomes matter. And the key takeaway here for me is his attitude toward failure.
Right.
He says, if your first plan fails, replace it with a new plan.
It sounds obvious, but most people don't do that, do they?
No. Most people treat a failed plan as a signal that they are a failure. They internalize it.
They make it personal.
They do. And Hill says, no, the plan was just a faulty blueprint.
Right.
If you build a bridge and it collapses, you don't say, I am a bad person. You say, the physics of that arch were wrong. You draw a new blueprint.
So the only true failure is quitting.
Quitting is accepting the temporary defeat as the final verdict. That is the only time the crime is actually committed.
And that brings us to what he calls the pivot point. Principle 7, decision.
This is the chapter that exposes the difference between the rich and the poor, purely on a behavioral level.
It's pretty stark.
It is. Hill analyzed thousands of people, and the statistic he gives is striking. Successful people make decisions quickly and change them slowly.
And unsuccessful people.
They do the exact opposite. They make decisions very slowly, if at all, and they change them quickly and frequently.
They're easily swayed, they listen to their neighbor, their brother-in-law, the news, and they just flip-flop constantly.
That is the crime of indecision we mentioned at the top of the show.
Yeah.
Indecision is a thief. It steals time. It steals momentum.
But more than that, it is a comfortable prison.
That's a great way to put it. A comfortable prison. If you don't decide, you can't fail, but you also can't succeed.
Hill is saying that a state of indecision is actually worse than a wrong decision.
Absolutely. Because a wrong decision gives you data.
Right. You move, you hit a wall, you learn from it.
Indecision gives you nothing. It's just stagnation. You just sit there.
So we've made the decision, we have the plan. Now comes the hard part, the grind. Part 3 is about sustaining the effort, and Principle 8 is persistence.
This is the unsexy part of the book. This isn't the movie montage where everything gets fixed in 2 minutes. This is the slog.
He tells that story of Are You Darby, the 3 feet from gold story. It's just tragic.
It is. For those who don't know it, Darby's uncle went west during the gold rush. He staked a claim, started digging, and found a vein of gold.
The dream, right?
The dream. So he covered it up, went back home, raised money for machinery, and returned to mine it. They mined the first carload of ore, shipped it off, huge success. They were thinking they were going to be millionaires.
And then the vein disappeared.
It just vanished. They kept digging, desperately trying to pick up the trail again. Nothing. Finally, they just quit.
They gave up.
They sold all the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s and took the train home in defeat.
But the junk man was smart.
The junk man was smart. He called in a mining engineer. The engineer looked at the fault lines and calculated that the vein of gold would be found just 3 feet from where Darby had stopped digging. 3 feet. The junk man made millions. Darby stopped 3 feet from gold because he lacked persistence.
That is painful to hear. But the story has a good ending for Darby, doesn't it? He learned from it.
He did. He went on to become a phenomenally successful insurance salesman because he told himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because a prospect says no when I ask them to buy insurance.
He turned the failure into a lesson.
He did. Persistence is the insurance against quitting too soon.
But doing that alone is incredibly hard, which is why Principle 9 is the multiplier, the mastermind.
And this is so often misunderstood. People think it's just networking. Oh, I have a mastermind group. We meet for coffee and chat.
Yeah, that's not it.
The Hill means something much, much deeper. He uses this math that shouldn't work. He says 1 + 1 = 3.
Right. What does he mean by that?
He talks about a psychic synergy. He argues that when 2 or more minds are perfectly aligned toward a definite purpose, they create a third, invisible, intangible force. He compares it to a battery. A single battery provides a little energy, but when you connect a bank of batteries together, you can create a surge.
So it's not just about having a buddy to cheer you on. It's about borrowing brain power.
It's about overcoming your own limitations. You cannot be an expert in everything. You cannot have endless energy. When you plug into a mastermind, you are accessing the education, the experience, and the energy of the other members.
You're building a third mind that is smarter than any single individual in the group.
That's it, exactly.
Okay, now we are wading into the deep water. Part 4. The mystery and the mind. These are the principles where Hill starts to sound a little esoteric.
They can feel that way.
But if we look closely, there's a real logic here. Let's talk about Principle 10, the one that usually makes people giggle. Sex transmutation.
The chapter that gets skipped the most? Or maybe read the most secretly?
It sounds like some kind of medieval alchemy. But what is he actually saying here? Because he claims this is a massive secret of the most successful people.
He does. And if you strip away the awkwardness of the language, it's basically just energy physics.
Energy physics.
Hill argues that the sexual drive libido is the most powerful desire humans have. It is the most intense chemical and emotional state we experience. It makes people risk their lives, their reputations, everything.
It's high-octane fuel.
Exactly. Now, most people just expend that fuel physically. They chase relationships, pleasure, distraction. Hill noticed a pattern among the greats. He found that men of massive achievement rarely hit their peak until their 40s or 50s.
Why wait so long? Why not in their prime?
Because in their 20s and 30s, they were dissipating that energy. They were burning the fuel joyriding. The concept of transmutation is simply redirection.
Taking that energy and pointing it somewhere else.
It's taking that raw, aggressive, creative drive, and instead of seeking only a physical outlet, channeling it into a business problem, into art, into an invention.
So it's not about repression, it's about reallocation.
It's high-performance sublimation. If you can put that level of biological intensity into a sales pitch or a speech or a product launch, you have a magnetism that other people don't have. He literally calls it personal magnetism.
You become more charismatic.
You are vibrating at a higher energy level. You're putting the rocket fuel in the rocket, not in the go-kart.
That is a perfect way to put it. Okay, moving inward, we have Principle 11, the subconscious mind. We've mentioned it a few times, but here he really defines it as the bridge.
It is the connecting link. It bridges the gap between the finite mind of man and what he calls the infinite intelligence of the universe, or just reality, if you prefer. The subconscious acts day and night. It never sleeps.
And again, the scary part, it doesn't discriminate.
It is a garden. That is the metaphor you have to remember. If you plant seeds of faith, it grows success. If you let weeds of fear fall into it, or if you just neglect it, it will grow weeds.
It just responds to the emotional intensity.
That's its language. And that's why the autosuggestion we talked about earlier is non-negotiable. You must control the input. If you don't, the environment, the news, the naysayers, the economy will control the input for you.
And the environment rarely has a positive plan for you.
Almost never.
Principle 12 takes this to an even more literal level, the brain. Hill calls it a broadcasting station.
He views the brain as both a receiver and a transmitter of thought vibrations.
This must have been pretty controversial back in the 30s.
It was, but think about it practically. When you walk into a room where two people have just been fighting, you can feel it, right? The air is thick. You pick up the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're around someone who is incredibly inspired and positive, you feel lifted. Hill's just saying that our mental states are literally broadcasting a reality. If you are tuned into the frequency of failure, you will only pick up failure signals.
You won't even see the opportunities that are right in front of your face.
Exactly. You'll walk right past them because your receiver isn't set to that channel. But if you tune your station to success, suddenly you start hewing the opportunities. You meet the right people. You spot the right deals.
It looks like luck to the outsider.
But it's actually a matter of tuning.
And that brings us to the summit, the final principle, Principle 13, the sixth sense.
This is the final stage. You can't force this one. He says it's the result of mastering the other 12.
He defines it as intuition.
But not just a random hunch. It's timely decision-making. It's insight that goes beyond pure logic. It's the ability to know something is right before you can prove it on paper.
So it's developed through practice.
He describes it as the door to the temple of wisdom. It's when the subconscious has been so perfectly programmed and the desire is so clear that the answers just appear. It protects you from dangers you can't see, and it notifies you of opportunities you might otherwise miss.
It sounds a bit like a superpower.
In a way, it is, but it's an earned superpower. It's what happens when the whole machine is running perfectly, in harmony.
So we have the roadmap, 13 principles. We've gone from burning desire all the way to the sixth sense. But every hero's journey has a villain. And in Think and Grow Rich, the villain isn't a person.
No.
It's an emotion.
Fear.
If these principles are the law, then fear is the criminal.
Hill identifies 6 ghosts of fear. The fear of poverty, of criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and the fear of death.
He calls them ghosts because they often don't exist in reality. They only exist in our minds.
That they haunt us just the same. They paralyze us.
And the root cause of all of them, what's at the bottom of it all?
Ignorance. We fear what we don't understand.
So the cure is knowledge.
Knowledge, action, and faith. When you shine a light in the dark room, the ghost disappears. You realize it was just a coat rack all along. But if you never turn on the light, if you choose to stay in the dark, you live your whole life terrified of the coat rack.
You never move. You never grow.
You stay in that prison.
That brings us all the way back to the mission of Crime Valley. We started this episode talking about the silent crime.
The crime of wasted potential.
After going through all this, after seeing the mechanics of how the mind can be tuned and directed, it really feels like a choice.
It is a choice, and that is the hard truth. Hill's ultimate conclusion is that we are the masters of our fate. We are the captains of our souls.
Not because it's just a nice poetic line.
No, but because we have the power to control our thoughts.
And if you can control your thoughts, you can control your actions. And if you control your actions, you control your destiny.
Success is engineered. It is not accidental.
So for everyone listening in the dark right now, maybe wondering if they're drifting, wondering if they are just wishing instead of deciding.
Stop wishing. Start deciding. Define what you want. Burn the ship so there is no retreat. And just watch how the world rearranges itself around you.
It's heavy stuff, but it's the only way out of the valley.
Absolutely.
Next time on Crime Valley, we're going to look that villain in the eye. We're going to break down those 6 fears in detail.
And I'm warning you now, everyone listening has at least 2 of them.
If not all 6.
You've been listening to Crime Valley. Think deeply. Decide clearly. Act relentlessly.
Good night.